always, I am Dr. Jen Welter, and with me, none other than Mitch Mullaney. Now, Mitch, I know that you have some favorites in the NFL, some teams, some this, but I have a fabulous, fearless female who has kicked a whole lot of glass in the NFL. And she might be the only ref in NFL history, or actually history of football, who never threw a flag at me and has been in the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's right. None other than the one and only Super Bowl referee, trailblazer, amazing mother, and selfishly, most importantly, my dear friend, Sarah Thomas. Hey, Sarah. Welcome to the show.
Oh, is she frozen?
Oh, no. She's frozen with a perfect smile.
And y'all are frozen. Y'all were frozen.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
I'll just say welcome again. Hey, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Jen, it's so good to see you. Love that fabulous introduction. I need to hear that every morning from you. Maybe I should record it and just put it on my phone. And Mitch, it's nice to meet you via.
Nice to meet you.
Sarah, I will happily record your personal hype reel. I mean, I'm pretty good at it. I will definitely do your walk up, walk up. Like we got this. I can come up with many of them for you. And, thankfully you really might be the only ref that actually likes me. There were refs that always paid attention to me, but I think that's different. It was kind of like 47 will be watching you around the quarterback.
Oh yeah, I'm sure when you were playing, no doubt. I mean, and Jen, I don't know if I technically liked you on the field, but it's not to say that I'm just kidding. I did. It's not to say that there's not an opportunity coming soon that maybe I'll be able to flag you on the field. So, hey.
I hope you will, because I will never forget when my linebackers found out that the lady ref was going to be on the same field that I was. And they were like, it would be totally dope, coach. And I'm like, no, what? And they're like, if you totally got in her face and challenged to call, they're like, this is chick fight. And I was like, okay, so what would not be totally dope is that I would probably be wrong. And, that's not what I do. I'm not the expert there, but when it comes to tackling, if it went that way, I got this. And they were like, yeah, that's right. And Sarah, when I said that though, I didn't really realize how tall you were. So it might have been a mismatch.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, if you see your guns and how fit you are, yeah, look, I like to think that I'm smart and bright and definitely have the gift of self-awareness and situational awareness. And one look at you and I knew better. But I do know in that episode that we were on the field together that something would or could come into play that would be to my benefit. Yes, and it would have been a flag. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm smart enough to know that I'm not going to mess with you.
Well, thankfully, that was never the case for us. I tell people all the time that I feel like our paths really have been intertwined in a way that is so layered and so destined to be that it's like we find out more every time we talk, right? And another level of love, respect, and interconnectivity. And so, I remember you being hired. And a lot of people, I tell this story all the time, but a lot of people don't know this. It was as a result of you being hired that a reporter asked Bruce Arians if he could ever see a female coaching in the NFL. And his answer was, the second a woman makes these guys or proves that she can make these guys better, she'll be hired. And it was that quote from him that led to me calling the Cardinals.
Wow.
So
I did not realize that that's how it all played out.
That is how it all played out. So because he said that, then, I went to my head coach. My head coach says, oh, well, we should call Bruce. Can you get me his number? And I thought, don't you have the NFL Black Book? Can't you get the number? Why am I doing this? But I ended up calling the Cardinals on behalf of myself as if I wasn't myself
Yeah.
and left a message. But when I met Bruce, we were on the field. He told me a story about a particular coach that had impressed him when he was coaching college. And her name was Dot Murphy. And because it was no different, he really felt like a calling that this was a decision or a change that he could make. Now, Sarah, this one
Yeah.
blew me away. As you see how many
You.
connections we have. Can you tell everybody why? Can you tell everybody about Dot Murphy and how that really shaped you and then influenced your path? And then we'll bring it back together because this blew.
Gladly, Jen, because that is one woman, pioneer, trailblazer. Because of her, coaches like Bruce Arians respected the fact of hiring females. And because of her, women like me that wanted to go and do something that was outside the norm. But Dot Murphy, I know her as Dot Easterwood Murphy because Easterwood is her maiden name. And for everyone listening, she was the first collegiate football coach ever. Hines Community College in Jackson, Mississippi, or if you really want to know, it's actually located in Raymond, Mississippi. And her husband became the athletic director there, but she actually played basketball for my Aunt Jill Upton at the University for Women and won the first women's national title in 1971. Then she played on the U.S. World Team that went to Moscow, Russia, and played for my aunt that coached that team as well, the equivalent to the U.S. Olympics now. They won, I believe, a silver medal. Pat Summitt was on her team. She's a phenomenal athlete, a phenomenal football coach, and one heck of an amazing woman. And just to have been listening to an interview that Jen was doing, and when I heard her say Dot Murphy, I went, there's only one Dot Murphy that is in the world of football. But I did not have any idea that Bruce knew her and that he had referenced her to you, Jen. And so I picked up the phone as soon as those interviews were over. I called Jen and I'm like, all right, talk to me about how you know Dot Murphy. And you talk about the layers of the onion that have been peeled back from the first time we've met each other and just the connection after connection after connection that we have. And yeah, Dot Easterwood Murphy, still, I just texted her about 2 weeks ago, Jen, because Briley, my oldest, was playing baseball there at Hines, and she came out and sat with us, and she's just family. But it's just crazy because I didn't think that it should have been a novelty that women were in male-dominated arenas or jobs or whatever you want to call it, because in my life and my upbringing, women were already doing that.
Right.
So the fact that you know Dot Murphy, it's just, it's wonderful.
Right. And,
It is.
and I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting her, but we have already promised that that meetup is going to happen with the three of
I'm
us.
telling you, that needs to happen. My Aunt Jill needs to come and get involved. And yeah, and those are two women that will be in the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame for sure soon.
As they should be. And I think
Dot may already be, honestly. I don't even know.
right. But I think, when I hear that and, when I think of the interconnectivity of you getting hired and how that led to me getting the opportunity and how Dot's career influenced somebody so long ago in Bruce Arians and also in you, in the way you've, tackled the football landscape, it really proves that we need women to keep breaking barriers, because you may break one barrier here, but it helps someone else over there. And then those stories need to be told because girls need to see that, growing up. We need your daughter Bailey at, football camps. I will never forget how cute she was with those big cleats on. And
oh, she still has them. She's so proud of them. They are in our garage. She goes, those are the first pair of cleats I ever got, Mom. They're Adidas, and I'm not getting any more. So, I mean, yeah, that's what she tells me. She's just now able to grow into them.
Perfect. But I know,
But you're right, Jen, you're so right. And honestly and truly, I guess I lived in my own little information bubble, but when I got hired, I didn't know who Amy Thrask was
Right.
until people were asking me about this comment that she said about I should be booed just like the male officials should be booed. She's absolutely spot on correct. I mean, we're officials out there. They see stripes. Don't use delicate gloves with me or sugarcoat things with me. But seriously, because of women like you and Shattering Glass Ceilings and Amy Thrask and so many other women, Dot Murphy, you know, when Bailey gets hopefully to our age or in her 20s, I should say, because that's when I started this whole thing, she won't have to ask, can girls do that?
that's right. And that's what we need more people to see. And we need it in all areas of society. And by the way, we need to see ponytails flying like we saw with yours. Every time I saw it, it brought me so much joy because I remember when I first met you that your hair was tucked up.
It was.
Um,
And Jen, the thing is it does feel a lot more natural being in a ponytail and out of my hat. It does, but not to discredit Gerald Austin when he hired me. I try to send this message to a lot of people that, well, me being the only woman, right? Okay. When Gerald told me I had to tuck my hair, I was a little offended. I was like, why? I had my hair out when you hired me. Why are you making me tuck it? And then it's kind of like pick your battles, because then he said, and you need to wear little or no makeup. And there's a lot of things I thank the good Lord for, and makeup is one of them. And there will be cameras out there, and I am not going without makeup. So this was like, all right, I'll pick my battles. But no, in all sincerity, Gerald, even Mel, forward thinking he hired me, but he's walked that walk before, Jen. And he knew the pressure of just being an official
Yep.
was like, and to be the first, even though I didn't know I was the first until after you hired me, being the first, he did not want people to immediately stereotype me. He said, I want them to see the way that you can work on your merit. And I respect that in him, even though I was a little taken back. All of that to say, then I got that whole, you know, superstition of an athlete. You kind of do the same thing like Rain Man over and over. You don't want to rock the boat. And if you do and you have a bad game, you blame it on the one thing that was not in sync. And so that's how I just navigated through college. The NFL did not tell me I could not wear my hair out. Me and Dean Blandino had that discussion. I told Dean, I said, Dean, I'm a creature of habit. I don't want to wear it out in a fitted hat. I don't like the way that it looks. I don't think it looks professional and clean. I think it looks just unkept when it's all the way down your back, and I just didn't like how my hair looked in a bun. And so Sam Rappaport asked me if they sent me an adjustable hat, a snapback, would I wear it? 2 years ago, she asked me to do this. Now three seasons ago. And at the time it would have been mid-season. And I just thought, if I do this, then it's going to bring all the attention on me. And I don't want that. I don't want that. So, because more and more women are getting involved in officiating. And so this past year, the 2020 season, with everything that was going on with inclusion and diversity and the end of racism, the timing was just right. And they sent me snapbacks and did not send me a fitted cap. And they said, we want you to wear your hair out. And I gladly did it at the beginning of the season. And it really wasn't about my hair.
no,
You know,
no,
it was great.
it was, it was.
I do love it. I do love it.
Well, and it was amazing to me because I saw it and I knew the difference because I was there at the beginning. And speaking of the beginning, I have to bring it back to that day, right? So here we are. It is the first game for the first female ref and the first game for the first female coach. And it is Arizona Cardinals versus Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
Tell me how you were feeling that day, and what it was like when they told me or told you that you had to meet me.
Jen, it was a blur. It was a blur. I swear it was a blur. So the biggest thing was my locker room. And as you know, as a player, when things off the field aren't just so how it bleeds to on the field. And that was the whole thing. But it was, again, just being the first and being new. They had me a locker room over here on this side. I would have to walk to the guys' locker room, make sure everybody's decent. And that's I still do it to this day. Now I'll say, hey guys, are you decent? And then I go, all right, no, are y'all dressed? Because you're not
You're never
decent. I mean, I give them fits. I'm just kidding. But it was a blur. But I do remember when they came and they said, we want you to meet Jen Welter, the coach, first NFL coach. And I was like, okay, how is this going to go down? Like, how is this going to be? And like, you don't want to rock the boat, but this is a very meaningful moment, Jen. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to share it with you. And we come together like it's choreographed. And that's a big word. So we come together and it was like kind of awkward. Like we're meeting each other for the first time. I didn't know you, you didn't know me. And I will tell you this, that's divine intervention, because for two people to never have met and for it to be staged, I think we came together with a very mutual feeling and respect for each other and for what the NFL had done in hiring both of us. And the divine intervention part is, who knew we would be dear friends to this day and have so many connections that we have.
Well, I remember too, Sarah, when you were talking about, when we were talking about this just the other day, you told me that first meeting had an impact on you and what I first said. I guess you were nervous and kind of came up, and I never knew this until, literally 5 years later. So can you kind of take people back?
I don't even remember. Tell me what I told you, Jen, because I'm telling you.
So
you were so just like this. And I was a little like, all right, let's get this done so I can get focused. Or, I mean, it was my first game.
Yeah. And I guess I just said to you, like, well, this is awkward, isn't it? And you were like, you said exactly what.
No, that's true. That is true. It was so awkward. Yes. Yes, you're exactly right. It was. But you were that I guess that calm that I needed, which is crazy. Yeah.
Right. And it's so high stakes, and it's like connection in the middle of the ultimate chaos, right? Like everything's going a million miles around us, and we meet for a handshake. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you realize, like, I want you to, if you think about it and close your eyes and picture what at that time was University of Phoenix Field, and the Kansas City Chiefs on one sideline and the Arizona Cardinals on the other. And there's a handshake between a ref and a coach. It's an every game occurrence, a multiple times a game. And yet that handshake was between two women.
Yeah.
And when I say that to people, they kind of go, oh, because that's not what any of them would have pictured.
And Jen, when I was like, it was awkward, is because the one thing I did not want to do is draw any attention to myself. I just didn't. I wanted to just blend in. That is the mentality of officials. It just is. And then to have it kind of staged to meet you, I knew that there would be all this attention on me as soon as I'm walking out of the locker room. And I just didn't, my biggest focus was not to bring attention to myself, but just, yes, when you said it was just awkward, you're right. It takes me back. I mean, and that handshake, it is huge.
It was. And I always have thought about that as a promise that there would be so many more women to come, right? That was the first time that handshake would be between two women.
And Jen, because of you, there are. And I just want to say thank you for what you did. I mean, Katie Sowers and I talk about you, and just, I don't have a relationship with a lot of the other female coaches, and not that I do with Katie. It's just when some circumstances happened, she just reached out, and I commend her for that. And it just speaks volumes for you and how you are navigating through all of this. Mm-hmm. And that handshake was huge, and it has been a very long-lasting friendship. My daughter, my kids, I mean, you are like Aunt Jen to my sons. They put things on Twitter and they just, I mean, you helped me through a lot too. I mean, so glad you're very smart, Dr. Jen Welter, in the area that you are not only football, but that whole stuff between your ears, I mean, just in your heart too, and it just speaks volumes. My kids and my family truly cherish our friendship as well.
And I certainly do. And one of the things that, you told me that I thought was really special and makes me smile every time is that, that the Cardinals guys will still, they still associate that moment and our friendship. Can you maybe tell people about that?
Yeah, and it's hard for me to talk about specific players, but
Yeah.
There are several that still will come up to me and ask me how you're doing and do we still communicate, and just the impact that you had on their young careers back then. So it just every time I see some of the guys, it's fun that they still come up and they ask, and it is even better then I can look them in the face and say, we talk quite often.
And I love the fact that that moment resonated so deeply with them because they were like, Coach, that's huge because they had never had a female ref or a female coach and they were so excited. So the fact that they come up to you still
So
regularly,
respectful too, just
yeah,
such professionals,
and I
you
think
know?
that that's really special too, because a lot of people, especially at that time, had questions on, would guys listen to a female coach? Would a female ref be able to stand her ground? And I've seen you do it so impressively so many times. I'm like, that's my girl. Don't mess with her. Hey, she might be taller than you, coach. You better watch out. But there were so many questions surrounding that. And just
Sure.
having seen you continue to shine in your way and the respect that they give you, I think is really powerful and obviously well deserved.
And
Before
Jen, I also think too, it speaks volumes just for how we as females carry ourselves and conduct ourselves, that it's professional. I don't know if some people anticipate there to be a cat fight or whatever it is, but it speaks volumes for the needle that is being moved due to you. And I'll put myself in there as far as other women that are taking notice, and the amount of young women that are involved in high school athletics and coaching and starting at the grassroots level. And that's what I want the biggest message to be sent is go out and do something because you love what you're doing, coaching, playing, whatever it is. And just because you're a woman should not hold you back.
Absolutely. And speaking of going out and doing what you love, it's a fascinating story how you got into refereeing because what most people may not know is that you weren't a football player. You didn't come to the game like I did. I actually think that was a great answer. What you told me, because we have that in common. But as an, a hooper, can you tell us how you went from a ball player in basketball to a football referee and why you would not be a basketball referee?
Yeah, so Jen, I kind of had the same mentality that you had as a player. I mean, I hated the officials. I don't know, I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't know if you hated the officials, but I did. I mean, the basketball officials, every time I would go up and block a shot, it was like, you don't have to blow your whistle. It's clean. You don't have to anticipate, think that I'm going to foul them. It would be something like that, or I'm blocking out cleanly, and they would blow their whistle, and I'd be like, I see you out here. You do not have to blow your whistle. So after college, and I didn't play football. I'd go and think I was a decent fan and knew what football was, but I didn't. But after college playing basketball, I played in a men's church league. They didn't have a women's league around. So I played with my brothers like I always do, pick up games. But hey, we'd been in this church league for 3 years. And this guy comes up to me, and my brother the other day, Jim, we were talking about it. I said, I don't remember who those guys are. And he goes, yeah, I remember who they are, Sarah, and they're twins. And he said, don't you remember why they brought it the vote? And I'm like, no. He said, because we beat them in the championship game and they wouldn't guard you because they didn't think you were going to score. But anyway, that's a whole nother sidebar. But So I've been in this league for 3 years. Apparently we won the championship and they raised a vote to kick me out because I was a woman. And a guy came up to me at a volleyball game and he goes, Sarah, I'm sorry about what happened last night. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, you don't know? And I was like, oh. And he said, they kicked you out of the men's league. And I said, why? And he said, because you're a girl. I said, I've been a girl for 3 years and I've been in this league for well, I've been a girl much longer than 3 years, but I've been in this league for 3 years. Are they just now realizing that I'm a female? And so I said, well, was anybody from my team there? And he said, no. And I said, well, I'll protest the vote. We got to have a fair shake. Well, it came down to a tie and the preacher was the tiebreaker. And I hug his neck to this day. I mean, he's closed one door, open another, right? But he asked one of the brothers, he said, why don't you want her in this league? And he said, well, because when she posts us up or we post her up, it just feels funny. And Jen, sometimes my mouth gets a little ahead of me. And I just said, I'm going to save y'all some heartache here. I looked at that guy and I said, you know what, as fast paced of a game as basketball is, if you get some type of sexual sensation out of this, you don't need to be in this league. And so I kindly was excused out the gym. And I was 23. I was so mad. I was crying. I called my dad and I was like, you got to be kidding me because I'm a girl. I can't play. They don't have a girls league. What am I going to do? It's the first time in my life I was sportsless. 2 or 3 months after that, I pick up the phone. I called my older brother. What are you doing tonight? I'm going to a football officials meeting. Can girls do that? I'd ask that all the time. And I think he finally thought for the first time in his life, I wouldn't be able to do something. Like I got kicked out of the league. My brother's finally going to be able to break from me. And I was like, can girls do that? And he just went, I guess so, sis. Be there at 6. So I walk into this meeting, this first meeting. And truth be told, the gentleman at the front, George Nash, who is still. All right. So I show up at this meeting with my brother, Lee. And I walk in and George Nash is at the front and he just stops talking to one of the other officials. And I look at him to break the ice. And I said, is this where you become a football? I'm sure I said referee. And I can't repeat what he said. I almost said it, Jen, but I can't repeat what he said. And then he said, I guess so. I sat in that room and I thought, you have got to be kidding me. Officials really get together and they talk about rules and what ifs. And I loved it. I was so intrigued. And then my competitive juices started flowing again. And I dug deep in the challenge of football. I tried basketball, but it wasn't a challenge. I became more of a coach on the floor than an official. And I would get frustrated. But football, I fell in love with just the challenge and being around all the guys and just the camaraderie. I just loved it. I can't explain it. It just is what it is.
And I got to learn that story after I had somebody approach me about being a football referee because he saw me so impassioned as a coach. And I was like, oh no, I'd be a terrible ref. I don't know how my girl Sarah Thomas does it. And that's when you told me, you're like, oh, I couldn't do it with basketball. That's why I had to go to another sport.
See, there you go.
And I was like, oh, see, she's truly my sister from another sister. I could definitely ref basketball because I don't know basketball. I'm good.
It would be the challenge. That's right. I agree.
Yes. And so we're going to do Mitch's minute, but one more question.
Oh,
We didn't ask her about the Super Bowl, Mitch.
I was going to get to that. Okay, I didn't want to interrupt any of your great chemistry, so I was just sitting back and listening.
No, I know.
Can you feel it, Mitch? Can you feel it?
It is. I'm like hugging
Electricity.
you right now. I'm like hugging you over the screen. Sarah, can you take us through what it was like to first get the call that you were going to ref the Super Bowl, and then kind of your emotions around it and the game itself, just from your vantage point?
Yep. So Jen, I got the call January 19th. We knew the calls were going out that day for the crew, and I get the call from one of the supervisors, and it's shortly after I'd left the gym, and he starts talking about a couple of plays in a prior game. And I really thought that that's what he was calling about. I mean, he was selling it, should I say. And then he said, well, the reason I'm calling you is because we know you're going to nail it in the Super Bowl when you're down judge for Super Bowl 55 in Tampa, Florida. I pulled off the side of the road so I would not lose cell service. And I screamed, I teared up. And it was just so great that he was the one calling me. He's just been one of those guys that's been in my corner, and you just know it. And just, I've shared a lot with him. And so it was great for him to be the guy that called me. Hung up with him. I FaceTime my mom. So Jen, you know how close I am with my mom and my dad. And I asked my mom, I said, is dad there with you? And she goes, no, he's actually gone to Jerry Lee's. That's his little place he goes. And I said, well, I said, I was going to wait. And I said, but I just need to tell you something. And, you know, she's like looking at me, and I said, I'm working the Super Bowl as the down judge in Tampa this year. And she said, are you pulling my leg? And we both started crying. And it was just that moment. And then, of course, I FaceTime my dad and then the kids. But Jen, that day, it was phone call after phone call, text after text, you know, and I think my phone stopped ringing about 1 a.m., from 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. And then it was laser focus. It was dodging COVID. I didn't leave my home. People did not come into my home unless they had masks. My kids, I would spray Lysol like crazy. And it was just, a lot of people are like, Sarah, you're just so somber. Jen, it's kind of like your mentality as a coach. You coach, you get to the big stage, you get to the national championship, you get to that game that you've been shooting for, and you're not satisfied. You know, you've got a job to do. You've got to work it elitely. And getting there, you know, through COVID and bypassing COVID and getting there, it wasn't a celebration for me until the confetti was coming down. I did have a couple of moments, Jen. I walked onto the field before anybody was there and just took it all in. Then I went and found my kids right before we kicked off. And that's when I was just like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. They're all safe, but they're here. This is another game to me, Jen. That's how us on that crew, what an elite crew we had. The crew I got to work with all season was phenomenal. But seriously, we had a job to do, and we knew that we could do it, and we would give it our best, and we did. And when that game was over, and a mentor of mine told me, he said, you stand there on that field and you take all of that in, let the confetti fall on you. And then I went and I was able to hug my 3 kids, and the rest is history.
Literal history and
Crazy.
powerful history. And knowing that, you know, also not only were you out there, but there were several women on the field with you, knowing that you were there at the first moment, and then seeing all of that progress, and you saw different progress markers throughout the season. How did that feel?
Jen, it feels amazing. It really does. And just knowing, you see female trainers and just female staff, and more and more females involved in just the networks, and just every role possible, whether it's with the stadium itself, whatever it is, you're just seeing it more and more. And at the moment, Jen, I don't really think about it. I just know it needs to happen. And there's capable females out there, humans that can do the jobs. But it's when we get to talking like this, or we get to talking on the phone about things, that just really make me, you know, yeah, like literally scratch my head, like, why isn't it sooner or more? But Jen, it's great to see it happening. And I've made reference to it. I want my daughter to be able to go into life and her professional career and whatever she wants to do, and not have to ask, can girls do it? I want that.
Absolutely. And on every level. And Sarah, I have to tell you, as your friend, and colleague and sister, and I mean, I always say how intertwined our fates are. To have gotten a call from you on that day, gosh, I think it was about 1 o'clock at night, right?
It wasn't that late.
Well,
Yeah, it was pretty late. It was
pretty cool. I think it was after all the
craziness.
stopped,
Yeah,
right.
you're right.
Like I said,
It was
just
midnight
stopped.
my time, probably 1 o'clock your time. That's right.
Yeah. And for you to have just been able to share that news with me from you, and to hear, like, I will never forget when you said, I'll be carrying you with me on that field.
I did.
I'm a pretty tough person, but boy, oh boy, I was crying on the phone with you. And I had the same mix of just joyful tears and excitement and sisterhood when I saw you out there. And
I did. I told you. I took a Sharpie and I wrote, initials of all the ones that have meant something to me on this journey, and you were there. You're a little smudge. I didn't take a picture before. I didn't want to jinx it. I didn't, but it's smudged, but you're there. I had you with me.
I definitely need to see that picture, but
I'll
just
send it to you. You just can't share it, Jim.
nope, I won't share it,
I
but
know you won't.
just know you are one of my favorite people in this world, and I love the way you lead and the strength you bring into situations because they're not easy, especially, being first, you're setting a standard and you do it so well. And
Thanks, Jim.
I just love you to death, and I'm so glad that you were able to have this conversation. And now, Mitch, you have been a perfect gentleman, by the way.
You
Like,
have.
hello, perfect
And-
gentleman, letting the girls
And
absolutely.
right back at you, Jen.
Yeah.
Right back at you.
All right. So
You're
Mitch's
rewarded for good behavior with your Mitch's Minute.
Oh, good. Okay. Mitch's Minute is a rapid fire segment where I ask 5 questions to our guest. Are you ready, Sarah?
I am ready, Mitch. Are you ready?
I am ready. So question number 1, we are going to start with the Super Bowl. Everybody knows about the preparation that goes in for the players and the coaches,
Yes.
but what about the preparation for the refs? Could you give us an inside look?
Yeah, we're no different than they are. We're watching film, we're doing film study, we're having calls, we're having Zooms, we're having tests, we're doing all the same things that we would do on a weekly basis. This just gives us a little extended time from the time we get the call and who we know the teams are than a typical week-to-week game.
Awesome. Number 2, what is the hardest penalty to call on the field while you're in action? I'm fascinated by this. Is it holding? Is it interference? What is it?
We don't think of them at all as hard, Mitch. It's our job.
Okay.
And the thing is that we are just trying to administer athletic justice out there. We're the enforcer of the breaking of the law, if you will. And we just really, our biggest thing is just to be in position, but we don't look at them as hard. We have an amazing amount of training and we call what we see.
If I were to get my game film out, Sarah, and make you administer some justice,
I love
I
that.
think that might be primetime TV right there because, since we never had to do that with each other. And, in football, we know, like, for example, there's some kind of holding on every play.
Oh,
Right.
Jen, we would definitely, it would have to be like a couple of bottles of wine and then it would really be a lot of fun for sure.
Oh, I think we must do it. I must find some game footage that I was particularly active in.
Oh, yeah, let's see. We need to.
That
All right, Mitch,
that's prime time.
your minute got cut to 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
No,
I guess
go
I'll
ahead.
ask one more question.
No,
then.
he knows that it's always more than a minute. You got this.
It's
Come on,
always
Mitch.
longer than a minute. It's like Mitch's Minute that's 5 minutes, but that's just the way it is.
It's like the 2-minute drill in football. Just call it your 2-minute drill, because then it
2-minute drill, but then
everything.
it's not M and M. Mitch's Minute, that's why we did the whole thing.
Mitch's minute squared.
Anyways, we're gonna go with a couple more questions. So first is, how has your perspective changed from being an athlete, a basketball player, and then becoming an official? How has your appreciation grown for officials?
Immensely, almost immediately. And I mean that first meeting I talked about with Jen, I had no clue. I used to say this, and I mean this. I would be at football games and I would see the guys run off the field. And I'm like, why are they running? And I thought literally somebody would go out and find 5 guys on the street and go, hey, here's some black and white striped shirts. There'll be cold beer waiting for you at the end of the game. Just survive 4 quarters and then run. I mean, that's how you feel as a fan watching officiating sometimes. And me being a player, I walked into that first meeting and I'm telling you, my whole mindset changed. And then getting on the field. I don't care if it was peewee, junior high, or high school, actually going out there and doing the job. And everybody that's in the stands or at home watching something on television, they're the best officials ever. But until you do it, just keep your mouth shut.
I love that. So obviously being an official between the lines, you hear a lot of trash talk, and I'm just wondering if you could take us onto the field with maybe a story, or maybe who's the best trash talker out there in the NFL?
Mitch, it can become comical at times, of course,
Yeah.
as you know. But I just truly believe there's nothing that I could just pinpoint.
Okay.
I want to just sometimes I go, y'all are exchanging some pleasantries, correct? Or there may be something like, you'll see a player that may be a little disgusted about something, and I may just make a joke with somebody else and go like, why is he so mad right now? In the moment, like I know my situational awareness.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and Jen and I were just talking about this, about how professional these guys are and respectful. They know maybe at any given time, they could be teammates eventually, or coming sooner than later with the free agency. So I know back in the day, you'll hear just all of these stories. And now I don't see it the way that a lot of people think that it really happens.
Okay. And the last question is, everybody wants to know, everybody out there, how far can you throw a flag? Like if 40 yards, 30 yards, I don't know.
If I get a run and start, Mitch, I can throw it pretty far. Just thank God it's not a baseball. I threw out the first pitch at my son's baseball game. Oh my Lord. You would have thought I'd never have thrown anything in my life. So I'm glad that the flag is not like a baseball, but I have thrown it like up and it's gone back. But if I can throw it, I'd say, I don't know. I don't want to give myself too much credit. Now, Mitch, you're going to make me go out there and start throwing my flag like at training camp or something.
We need
I don't know, what, 30 yards, 25 yards?
A combine for the refs. I think that's what we need.
I love it. We do have some agility drills that we have to do. I think we ought to throw in their flag throwing, like field day back when you were in elementary school.
Awesome. All right. That is Mitch's Minute with Sarah Thomas. And we really appreciate you being here and joining us for this interview. I learned a lot just sitting back and listening to you two reminisce and talk about your experiences. Jen, I know she wants to wrap it up with her friend here, but yeah, I just appreciate you being here and taking the time with us on the Juke. That was Sarah Thomas, the one and only Super Bowl referee. Jen, your personal friend, and it was just great for me to see you two interact. I was just sitting back like, oh, this is cool. Like these two interacting, the chemistry off the charts, the electricity in the air. Jen, what were your thoughts on the interview?
You know, it's been so powerful to see, and for each of us to learn about each other over the years, right? Like, you know, the fact that her getting hired opened the door for me, and that Dot Murphy had such an influential role in both Sarah's career and in Bruce's, you know, openness to opening the door. I know that her and I have had many moments where we're like, wait a minute. And so I just love that we were able to, you know, kind of open ourselves up to sharing that story, and how multifaceted it is with so many people. And then also getting to understand, you know, someone who has been so transformational in the NFL, and yet we don't get to hear that much, right? We don't normally, if somebody's doing what she has in terms of literally breaking the gender barrier over and over and over and becoming such an iconic figure. It's so interesting, I think, to see someone who is often, you know, seen and not really seen unless something goes wrong, right? It's not like we get to hear from Sarah regularly, right? And so to be able to just really bring people into the phenomenal woman that she is, and phenomenal mom and friend, and for them to get to hear that beautiful Southern accent of hers. I just had a lot of fun with it. And I think it's really going to resonate with a lot of people in terms of kind of the sisterhood in sport, and just how much we really all do impact each other, even if other people don't necessarily know it, right? Like those ripple effects go beyond, I think, a lot of the times what we get to know.
And I think that's the power of sports too, is those not just playing the game, the winning and all that everybody talks about, but it's the relationships that come from the sport. And that's the power, I think, of playing sports, whatever game it is, football or any other. And I think that's what we saw and what I saw just watching you two together having that conversation. Sarah, I'm going to say this right now. I need to see you throw that flag. I need a videotape. I need something. I need to see it. I think we're going to have a combine coming soon here, exclusively brought to you by the Juke. We will keep you definitely to that, but we appreciated your time, appreciated the conversation, and that has been another episode of the Juke. Make sure to follow us on all the platforms, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and let us know how you feel about another episode. From Mitch and Dr. Jen, peace.